Welcome, everybody. Uh, I think it's my privilege to be part of such an esteemed panel discussion 2 years into the pandemic. And I think the convergence of edge, AI, cloud has really changed our lives, right? Who would have imagined in the last 2 years the kind of digital transformations that we've seen across industries? I remember a WhatsApp joke which was going around saying, what's the single largest catalyst of digital transformation across the world? And the answer was COVID, right? 2017, 18, being a consultant all my life, doing board meetings, I walk into board meetings and CFO says, or the CXOs say that, yeah, we can talk about cloud, we can talk about AI in the last 10 minutes of a board meeting. Uh, 2022, the board meeting starts and the first topic that get discussed is how do we go to cloud if we've not moved to cloud? How do we use the entire data, hybrid data that we have? And what do we do about digital? Once again, welcome to my fellow panelists. It's indeed a pleasure moderating such an esteemed conference. Let me start with you, Kapil. Your initial thoughts when you got this invite on, and I'm pretty sure being in the industry for so long, you would have dealt with all of this. So your initial thoughts, please.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jaspreet. So a quick introduction. So I'm Kapil MAHAJAN. I'm the group CIO for Safexpress. I've been working here for close to 5 years now. And prior to that, I have a decade and a half experience with IBM Global Services and have been across geographies and working with customers across the space and across verticals. COVID, transformation, technology, I think everything has changed, right? Last 2 years, as you rightly said, in the boardroom discussion, tech used to be probably the last topic. But post-COVID, that this is the center stage of everything that is being done, right? Whether it's business transformation or it's business strategy, I think the underlining theme is technology today. And I think the board members today understand the relevance and the power of technology to transform the businesses. A lot of it was forcibly seen by them during the COVID era. I know that a lot of our leaders who are old school had their first stint with technology, moving to social platforms or moving to collaboration tools that somehow did not seem that interesting. And it was always about, you can't really replace in-person connect with people, which I still feel is relevant. But I think the COVID actually forced us to leverage technology to bridge those gaps and still remain functional and relevant during those desperate times when there was more need for collaboration, there was more need for empathy, there was distances putting people apart. But I think the digital ecosystem bridged everything together. And I feel that that's where that whole culmination of technology taking the center stage, came in, right? And that idea sank in with most of the senior leadership across the globe, not just India. So that's my initial take on that, Jaspreet.
Wow, Kapil, you've hit the road running. If I were to say, you spoke about so many things, but also the fact that so many senior leaders actually embraced technology, right? In terms of how do you collaborate, whether it's collaboration tools like Teams, etc., or even the entire cloud piece, which was unheard of for 5 years ago, because there was always a resistance to change, especially moving to some of these collaboration platforms. Excellent, Kapil. Let me come to you, Kushal. Your introduction and your initial thoughts, please.
Yeah, hi. Hello, all. Thank you, Jaspreet. So my name is KUSHAL, currently working as Chief Technology Officer at Virescent Infrastructure. We are a green company. We generate green energy, clean energy, and selling it to the state discoms currently across 7 states in India now. And if I talk about my experience, particularly about pandemic, so I think the biggest, and Jaspreet, you might rightly mention, whether it is a CEO-led transformation, digital transformation, CIO-led. So it was definitely a good amount of transformation which was done because of pandemic. And I think it was major thing was a mindset change. Like people have witnessed, we can't go to office, we can't travel. We have to think about, as my colleague Kapil has rightly pointed out regarding collaboration part. Collaboration is very important. Threat parameters have changed. Earlier, it was typical corporate office network where lots of things are restricted, firewalls are there. Security threat parameter has changed. So everything we have to push to endpoint, be it security, DLP, everything we have to push to endpoint. If we have to talk about data center, people who are under essential services, definitely they can travel and do the upkeep of maintenance of their data centers. But for others, it was very difficult how they will travel just for the data center or a server room upkeep part. So that time, definitely people have realized, okay, cloud is the thing. And second most critical thing, what cloud did was unprecedented growth in data. We have seen suddenly how there was a sudden spike, be it because of collaboration, be it of our, we are all of a sudden we are digitally surrounded with the Netflix usage, the YouTube, the Prime. I think everything has shoot up like anything. In fact, internet globally, I think there was impact on bandwidth issues also, because all of a sudden everyone is working from home, and then I don't think we were prepared for that. Broadband, corporate broadband, all those things were planned. So it has changed all these, I think, thought process a lot. And if we have to meet these kind of changes on prem, if we plan anything, it's very, very difficult. I think cloud is the only way, like where we have the flexibility to scale up any point in time. We can scale down also. We can manage in terms of our inorganic growth for data perspective also. I think many startups who are born in pandemic, and I can also proudly say we are born in pandemic, incorporated last year in August 2020, and since then we have acquired somewhere around 12 companies across India. So I think some people see it as a challenge, some people see it as an opportunity, but I think we should not forget the learnings from pandemic, and we should move towards the fifth industrial revolution as well as to the 5G world.
I think, Kushal, you've stolen some bit of talking points from my few questions, but we'll come to that. And I think, yes, you mentioned 3-4 key points, which I would like to re-emphasize. One was obviously the threat landscape has changed. There is no doubt about that, right? Right. You know, I was presenting in a board, and I said you have 3 offices in NCR and 7 overall in India. He said, sorry, he said, Jasprit, I think you're wrong. We've got 15,000 offices in India. He said every single employee working from home is now an office, right? We need to treat it as an office, and then we have to protect that. So that was one. And second, you mentioned the internet usage, right? I was reading somewhere that the entire valuation of cloud companies in the last 2 years that we've been at pandemic has increased by 900%, right? Only Teams as a channel that we use, its valuation is close to $40 billion, which is more than top 4 airlines of this world, right? I let that settle in. Its valuation is more than top 4 airlines of this world, right? So thank you, Kushal. Now let's come to you, Manish. Your initial thoughts, please.
Thank you, Jasprit, and welcome to co-panelists. Delighted to be here. So my name is Manish Kishore, and I'm heading the digital health and IT for a government enterprise named as AMTZ. It is India's first integrated medical device manufacturing ecosystem, which is spread across 270 acres with 94 companies in action and 2 incubation centers for Atal Incubation Center and BIRAC. So I think we didn't have even a 1 minute of downtime, but we can certainly say that we were made in lockdown. So we especially were in a flux when we thought the pandemic is there. Now, how to run across the industry, and especially the medical device industry. So I think we were the early adopters of the digital health, where we started leveraging edge, AI, cloud, blockchain, IoT, and we built an ecosystem to enable infrastructure as capacity initiative for the medical device industry. So what we thought was to reduce the import dependency across India. And we were greater than 90% of import dependency. And currently, after 2 years, we are less than 65% of import dependency. And I think that's something I'll tell you. When there was shortage of oxygen concentrator across India, we have to supply oxygen concentrator across India, and an oxygen concentrator which was costing $1,000 and Indian currency maybe around 60,000, 65,000. Now, how to make it reachable and how the citizen should benefit it? And that time, I think we took the route of democratizing the technology. We adopted the mobile applications, reached to the customers. We had the supply chain issue where the customers can bring it on a rental of 150 rupees. Now, how we did it? We could not establish servers in-house. We went to cloud, scaled it as per the needs of it, used the mobile technology here to reach to the customers, used the GPS to enable the location of the customer to have the supplies being made, tied up with Uber to ensure that the product is reaching the customer at time. Now, all this was done ensuring adoption of the new technologies. Now, when I talk about supply chain, it has to be manufacturing also has to be looked at. Now, how to build that oxygen concentrator at a fast pace? Now, we have to adopt a lot of IoTs across to ensure that what kind of manufacturing system. So intelligent automation we did in pandemic of the factories. Now, we cannot get it from China or other come in all countries outside. Now, how to build it in-house? So we started looking for innovators to come into the zone and start building it. The second was RT-PCR kits. So we currently have the capacity of 90% of India needs that is being done from here. Now the injection molding, the reagents, all has to be brought in. So we started adopting edge computing here, and especially in manufacturing, so that at least we can deploy some AI tools across to ensure that these supplies from the suppliers to the manufacturing and from manufacturing to the customer is at least we have some AI piece onto it. So I'm not talking about pure AI and ML, which we are adopting in various healthcare needs, but as a pure manufacturing and adoption of edge, IoT and the cloud infrastructure we have used.
Manish sir, I don't have words to explain or to add anything to that, given what your organization was doing, right? And I know everybody's seen that horrible period, the second wave in India. So we'll come to that, but I think great examples on how we can also use technology to help people get what they need and when they need it. I think that is equally more important, right? Because we all know our maybe our street names are not correct. We face a lot of issues, right, from a GPS perspective also. Last but not the least, Farhan sir, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Jasprit, thank you so much. And hello, my fellow panelists. I'm working with Allied Blenders. We are in a liquor space. We are third largest as far as the volume is concerned in India. We have about 34 factories all across India, and we are also exporting to 70 odd countries all across the universe. I think the question, the spirit was very valid. The answer, I think, if you look at the journey so far, as far as IT goes, I think IT started in India as ADP, electronic data processing. Started my career in '94. The era of 90 to 2000, I think everybody knows about it. It's coding on FoxPro, DBase, working on a different database, different data punchings and collaborating into one. And then the PNL has been deployed in Lotus 123. Late 90s and 2000, struggling with lots of ERP. The BAN came into India. SAP also came, and Oracle same time. And that was the era when the people start deploying, the ERPs. Till 2010, ERP, CRM, dealer management, other applications, basically the cover of different processes that we have all across. Till 2000, then social media came into it. This is where the bomb, the data, which is basically started getting into it. I think few people remember it. MTNL was costing 10,500 rupees for 500 hours. I still remember that we used to send somebody to MTNL office just to get a one coupon where the code is given and the PSTN line was connected. Now, look at the Airtel and the Jio. They're charging only data. Everything is free. Voice is free. Incoming is free. Outgoing is free. So that's how the data, not in with respect to enterprise, even for a person, for the people, for individual, the data is so important. And that's why in most of the things, it comes like data is a new oil. That's how the communication and it's happening all across. Now, why it is oil? The reason being, it gives you a prediction, and that's the reason 2010 and 15, a lot of business analytics and all these things came into power. And then all of a sudden, nobody was thinking about, because the digitalization was the part of a EI framework. All of a sudden, this pandemic has hit everybody's. And it's so badly that the digitalization wasn't top priority. Earlier, it was aspirations or maybe readiness for the digitalizations, and all of a sudden, it was basically need of a business. Today, if you look at the kind of organizations, like we are very a regulated industry because it's a state subject industry. Artificial intelligence or digitalizations like ML, RPS, it's things to do it. It's a need of a business. It's not CIO's aspirations to work on those technology, because this is the need of an hour. If organization is not go and adopt such technology, then I think it's called like you are not going ahead with the digital technology. New things which has come, which I think everybody will talk about. Cloud is a commodity now. It's moved from to be or not to be. It's a commodity. We need to see how this cloud is going to be set in our internal architecture and what kind of solutions and prospect that we have to. As I said that in 2000 there is ERP struggling. Now ERP is in a back-end application. Now what is the front-end application? Is a business application. Those business applications are available in the market on the shelf. You go, all applications are available as a service. You can go and buy it. You use it. You pay per use. You use it for a period. You use it for a number of hours or number of a day, and say thank you so much. My job is done. So the whole game of IT from EDP and today and digitalization have moved to 360. The whole paradigm has changed. Now, I still remember when there is a ERP hardware refresh, there are a number of meetings which are happening with the OEM partners. What would be the capacity? What were the peak time that we have seen? What was the volume that we have seen in the past 6 months and all, so and so forth. Then we are concluding, okay, this is the size of a server. This is how it's going to be. These kind of redundancy, we should go RAID 1, RAID 2, RAID 3, RAID 4, RAID 5 and all. Means the discussion was like, it's almost a month discussion when we finalize, okay, this is my final bill of material, which I'm going to buy. And today you have options, whether you go for AWS or use it whenever there is a high on volume. There is no point to tell them what they need to do. It's automatically hyper scale. It automatically goes up. It automatically goes down. There is no need to have a month discussion just because of this. Yes, we need a hardware which will support the high volume of transactions which is happening within the organization. So Jasprit, we have moved, I think I would say in a 360, I've seen this change in my life. And this new era is, of course, is so dynamic that, we are just thinking about, for example, if you look at the data, means Hadoop, data lake. You have all kind of data. You have a video, you have audio, you have a text structure, unstructured data. Then you do a multiple analysis. You can attach your mobile applications which can communicate to different users and all. I think that's what the future is all about, Jasprit.
As always, Farhan, pleasure listening to you. You've taken us back 20 years and also talked about future, spoken about EDB to Hadoop, to visualizing what the future will look like. And, I'll let the other panelists on this esteemed conference talk about what future will look like a little later. But excellent coverage, even from the perspective that data is the new oil, right? So, I would probably like to ask my first question to you. While all of these changes are happening from a IT CIO perspective, I know you mentioned briefly that the business also has to be involved, right? Because it's business first, right? How do you think will the entire convergence of all these new technologies with business happen?
Smith, I will share one of the experience with you. Largely in IT, in India, of course, most of the CIOs are reporting to CFO. When you go for any approval, specifically for the technology upgradation, hardware upgradation means hardware refreshes means hardware is not working, they understand. But when you go for any technology which is new, for example, in today's scenario, it's RPA or machine learning and AI, it's very hard to tell them what it is. But I'm talking about 2007, 2010. Whenever you go with the new technology innovation, there would be thousands of questions that you have to answer it. Thanks to Steve Jobs, I'm telling you, the Steve Jobs has introduced things like that you can store your contact on cloud along with iPhone. And this is the concept which you can briefly tell CFO or the non-technical management what was this contact is basically lying for. It is not on my mobile. It is available when it is crashed, but it is available somewhere else. So selling a cloud become more easy because they can see how the things are happening. Now, when you look at the current scenario, I'm talking about 2021, when the pandemic hit, as KAPIL has mentioned and KUSHAL is also his brief, but telling them some user how Zoom and Team works was a task. But they understand, the back of the mind, they understand this is the only way by which you can run your business. This is the communication channel which communicate to each other, whether it is a management layer or executive layer or the lower executive layer. This is how you can pass your message. Then there are a number of things which are happening. So these kind of examples, which has been set it right in front of them, the confidence of management has reached to that level, as you rightly said. In 2022, the general meeting which is going to be happening is start with the IT initiative, that what kind of digitalizations you are going to go ahead with this within the organization itself. And of course, if you look at the government who is coming with the new laws and all these things, IT is the only way by which the transparency can be managed within the organization itself. So it's a way of living. We move from one step to another. And now I think future is very bright. Selling cloud become very easy. Just to tell them the collaboration tool which help organizations to connect each other, sync each other. There is other technology can be sold through with the non-technical management. And the irony is in India, CIO reports to CFO.
I would just like to kind of add to that.
Please.
So luckily, or I don't know, I don't report to CFO, so I report to the managing director. So right, so but yeah, I think just adding on to FARHAN and what your question was, Jaspreet, I think see COVID or non-COVID, right? There were always organizations that were always ahead of the curve, right? And having worked with a lot of these MNCs like American Express, Shell, Airbus, Prudential, DBS, right? These are companies that are very progressive. They understand how technology can be leveraged to deliver a business result, right? So end of the day, I still believe the key role of business is to do business, not sell technology or not, technology is just an enabler. And what COVID did was it accelerated the belief in technology to be that enabler, right? But if I have to come back to your question, I think there were two important factors. One, business, whether yesterday or today or in the future, one very key fundamental part of any business is agility, right? How agile is the business, right? Can it change? Can I introduce a product to market within a week? Can I compete with a startup? If there is a major disruption, can I still be relevant, right? So these are the questions that really haunt the board at the top, right? Will we be there 5 years down the road, right? Because transformation is happening around you, whether you like it or not, and you can't stop it. right? So I think today businesses are looking at agility in a different way, right? And providing the convergence between different technologies, whether it's AI, whether it's machine learning, whether it's IoT, all of them need to converge to add or to build that business value, right? And then AI and machine learning in itself, what they are trying to do is make an enterprise cognitive, right? So I keep selling this word that you need to build cognition into the enterprise. Today, every business process needs to have a workhorse that's doing that job, and AI can do that for you, right? That frees up people to do something that is more strategic, where we can add more value rather than do repetitive job tasks, right? That's why I think we spoke about RPA, right? I believe RPA use case for more than a year, probably you are not an agile company in itself, right? Because an RPA can always be a job that is being done by an RPA can easily be automated, right? If you put your weight around it, right? So it's
Right.
only for short term that you need to use tools like that. So the convergence is going to happen, and it's happening. Edge itself, the theme of the conference is edge. So edge computing is very, very relevant in India, especially in a sector like ours. When we talk about technology, we still deliver to areas where there is no internet.
Yeah.
And we can't change that, right? That's the business environment. I can't change that. So how do I make my edge devices smart? Today we have models that can run on our edge device offline. It's very easy to buy a Google product and get a Google API and do computer vision on that. But it's a whole new paradigm to build it on an edge and make it work on the edge, right?
Wow.
I think Farhan talked about technology. He spoke about ERPs. I think today products, there are a lot of products in the market. But when you're looking at your organization, you got to invest in platforms. That's what I always tell, right? Invest in platforms. Because platforms are a place where you can build on top of it. For example, we do a lot of work on Salesforce, but we build on force.com. We have a custom solution that's built on force.com. That gives us the capability to actually make our business agile, because tomorrow we can change depending on our business needs, not on how an SAP works or now on how a particular product is configured, right? Then where is your competitive differentiation? So I think two important things: you got to invest in platforms, and when it comes to all these emerging technologies, they are all already converged, whether you like it or not, and they have converged to build that agility, and which is an important aspect that the board looks at, and that's where you're getting these fundings and you're getting these whole interesting projects being worked out around it.
Thank you, Farhan, and then thank you, Kapil, for adding so many interesting pieces to this. Kapil, you've stole some of my questions, but that's okay. I'll come to you, Manish. And Kapil spoke about the convergence of edge, right? A lot of pieces that you do would involve lot of convergence with the entire telecom networks, etc. What's been your experience from a convergence perspective?
I think a lot of enterprise work in silos. I think we have dependencies, interdependencies, and so until unless you converge the data together of all the silos which is working together, then only you can build an intelligent enterprise together, and that's how the technology will come into piece. And specifically talking about edge, so let's say I sit in a remote zone, we are not connected well. Now can I have the industry with that kind of bandwidth, where being a medical device, I have to transmit a 3 to 4 GB of data of a MRI here. Can I process it at the station and ensure that radiologist gets all the reports then and there? Now from there, can I dissect the data into the data which is only patient centric and which can reside in the cloud? And we are more in regulated environment. We have to comply to a lot of rules. I have to store that data for 10 years across with. And now patient privacy rules coming into picture. Do I have the consent of the patient to have that stored? And he has the access to it. Now, all these computational powers and AI on top of it, which is supporting the doctors to predict what is the patient going through and what kind of prognosis I have. So AI is helping that. Edge is helping to have some computational power at the station there where the machines are deployed, and only the relevant data which goes to the cloud. And from there, I have, in fact, we have built a lot of telemedicine tools across, which is helping to connect all the spokes in the remote areas to the hubs. And all those spokes are working on an edge computing there, so that if I don't have bandwidth connectivity, they can support it at that time, and it is connecting to the to doctor sitting at the hub location and give the direction. So, but in terms of advancing, in terms of enablement of services to the patients and to the citizens, I think it is all important to converge all this together. So until then, data is, I think, is at the center stage for everything which monitor. And what Farhan Bhai and Kapil ji did mentioned about it is data is now a part and parcel of the life. Computing is there. Now, can we converge into, in fact, we are thinking of creating a cloud data center for healthcare industry in our zone, so that it can enable all the manufacturers in-house which is developing, and they can connect. So is the data interoperable?
I think there are a lot of fundamental questions that you spoke about data, and I think one question maybe Kushal you could answer, given what you are seeing in your industry, is that we are collecting a lot of data, right? But are we also looking at the data privacy piece? And with the proposed data protection bill coming around the corner, how will that play a piece? Maybe Kushal you could probably answer that, or if not, I think. Kapil said investing in a lot of tools, platforms is going to be the future, right? And obviously to keep not only your business running, but to have that edge in your business, right? To be cutting across borders, cutting across work streams. Your viewpoints on that, Kushal.
Sure, Jaspreet. So first thing, Jaspreet, we have to understand, like, we are more digitally prepared. So digital has intruded in our lives. We are digitally surrounded, be it Alexa, be it smartphone, everywhere. And everywhere we are getting tracked, and everywhere generating, I think, gigabytes, petabytes of data, right? And then going forward, we are going to, I think this will increase. So be it machines, if I'm talking about be it personal life or professional life, everywhere we are generating data, and their data can be useful. So for example, if I'm surfing a site, next moment you go to Facebook or you check any other site, you'll see relevant ads related to that. You go to Yahoo Mail, you'll start seeing, maybe you want to buy some car, you'll start seeing ads related to the car. So everywhere. I think if you have seen the Cadbury advertisement, right? So it's hyper local, right? So it's same Shah Rukh Khan, but you will hear the name of your local grocery store, or maybe some local kirana store or supermarket. So I think now we are moving towards the personalization part. So this is, if I say, from industries or players who are playing into B2C segment. Now coming to my segment, where we are currently into B2B primarily, or B2G space. In our case also, we are having rooftop sites. My previous company was having rooftop sites. Currently, we are having open access farms. We are having PLCs. We are having SCADA systems. Now we are talking about IT, OT convergence, operational technology in IT. We are generating good amount of data, huge amount of data. And basis that, how we can make smart move. I'll give you a couple of examples, and then I'll touch base on the privacy part also. So for example, I may be having 10 blocks or 20 blocks in same area. But if I do compare how my one block is performing and other block is not performing, then I can go into that, okay, why one block is not performing and at the same time other block is performing, when same modules are there, same azimuth is there, everything is same. So if cloud is there, it may happen once in a while. It is not like every time there is a cloud on one particular block and other block it is not there. So now we are analyzing all the data to string level. I think in future we may start analyzing the data to individual module level also. So we are focusing how with same amount of installed capacity we can generate more electricity. Okay, I'll give you one more example. I implemented CMS system earlier, and with MLAI we increase our revenue by 15%. And how we did that? A couple of examples. So like in UAE, so we were having plants in UAE. Now in UAE, dust storms are very common. So it's a blue collar job also. Cleaning is a blue collar job. So if today I have done a cleaning, right, and tomorrow there is a dust storm, or maybe today in the evening there is a dust storm, I will be losing my generation for next month or until my next cleaning cycle. Now, if my system, so it can be a central thing if connectivity is not an issue, because I think not just India, other parts of the world also, connectivity is not that good. Everywhere network connectivity is not available. So definitely edge is helpful. But if in case edge is not available, like in our case, we were pushing the data to a central server, central cloud. We were doing all big data analytics because each plant was generating thousands of parameters, and every so we have set up it as every 5 minutes you send the data. Otherwise, it has the capability to send data every second or every minute also. So that we have to decide it. So now we have to deal with that data, analyze that data. Okay, there is a likeliness. Without manual policing, we will come to know, okay, there is a likeliness, there is a dust storm. So assign some contractor, go and do the cleaning cycle. Now it's a very basic thing. But if you don't do that, you are going to lose revenue for the entire month. We are talking about predictive analytics, like maybe inverter is maybe for may break down, right? We are seeing advertisement of water purifier. So it will tell you, okay, it's the time to change the purifier filter, right? So that is edge, right? So we are putting smart things, we are talking about self-healing devices. So I think those things are very critical, and definitely we need to draw a line when we talk about data privacy, because everything is going, and data is a fuel, we all know, and you are the product actually. So they are actually not product, you are the actually consumer. So whatever you are doing, and they are coming and manipulating you, they are showing you ads, customized ads, giving you offers. So people are interested knowing more about you, your personal life, and so that they can sell more to you, right? So I think there is to be a line should be drawn where limit certain things. Definitely privacy perspective should not be intruded, and GDPR is already in place now. Indian version of GDPR, which is data privacy and protection law, may come out soon. And we all have to work towards that, because some, you can say, me time or some privacy, it is important, it is very critical.
Some excellent points, Kushal, on how this convergence is going to shape our future, etc., and how it's now become the need of business. You mentioned, I think Farhan mentioned the data is the new oil. You mentioned about data. Kapil, with all these convergences happening, and between Kapil, Farhan, probably, I would like both of you to answer this question. When edge comes in, AI, as CIOs, don't you have too much data to deal with? How do you segregate what data is to be kept, what is not to be kept? Because I think it's like over death by data. Yeah, I want a CIO's perspective on data, and then we'll come to Manish and Kushal to talk about all this data in cloud.
Right. Yeah, good question. Very relevant 10 years back also, Jaspreet, and very relevant today. So if you look at it, about 92% of the enterprise data is dark, right? Which means that that data is just lying there, no one's using it. Right? That's a global statistic I probably read somewhere beginning of this year. So data is there, a lot of the, especially if you go to different sectors, we as a sector, supply chain, logistics, generate a lot of data. For example, we have 8,000 vehicles, all have telematic device. There is a ping coming every minute. So you do the computation and math around the number of, lat long positions we get in a day, right? Every point when we scan a box, there is a lat long getting generated. The data is getting generated like crazy, and we are storing this data because everyone knows data is a gold mine.
Right, and I just interrupt you. So I sorry, I've not used Safexpress, but obviously I use Amazon and Flipkarts of this world. It's the data has become so irritating. Also, if I were to use that word, is as soon as I order something for my daughter, I have a 7-year-old daughter. Every 2 hours she'll come and check for updates, and it shows whether the box has left the warehouse, it's on the way, it's being delivered by 9 p.m. This is the agent number, right? But I full sympathies to you. As a CIO, you'll have to keep all this data, keep everything secure. Yeah, back to you. Just wanted to give this example.
No, I think very relevant. Now, my fear, Jaspreet, is when your 7-year-old is going to join service at 22, 23, then imagine the kind of data she would expect out of a business enterprise. Now, we are a B2B company. right? And what you spoke about is a very B2C use case, but then the same users are also, working in businesses. So in the last few years, there has been this need for more data by our customers. And I know that they're not really going to use that data. If I'm telling you every 5 minutes where your truck is, what the hell are you going to do with that, right? But there is this need. We need to. And they put it under the umbrella of transparency. Other people are showing it. Can you also show? So
I
you
understand. I understand.
right?
It's a
You
cost
need
of
to
doing
draw a
business,
line.
right?
Yeah.
It's cost of doing business also.
Cost of doing business. Yeah, it is a cost of doing business. Anyways, we were storing that data. But coming back to your question, I think data needs to be stored, right? Because that's really a gold mine, and it can create a lot of differentiation for you if you harness that data properly. So, for example, we had all this data lying, we consolidated it on a data lake, and we had a very good DI practice, and we have kind of in the last 4 or 5 years really honed it well. And we have at any point about 800 enterprise users using reporting, right? And I have worked in global companies, and that percentage is really phenomenal. Whether it's an Indian company or a global company, that many BI users say a lot about the company. That company is being driven by data and not by gut, right? So that is where we are. But then we have used this data to do a lot of our work on prescriptive reporting or prescriptive analytics, right? So today, if we are running routes and multiple partners are running on that route, we can find out ways to rate those partners. We can find out ways to tweak the SLA or to find that 1 hour, 2 hour in a route and say that, starting next month, the SLA for this route can be reduced from 20 hours to 19 hours, right?
So bringing all about efficiencies also back using data, right?
Right. So yeah, so you could actually look at that data as you rightly said. So I remember back in the Pfizer days, back in New York, we used to do a lot of competitive data analysis. So they had very important drugs, Lipitor and Viagra, right? And we used to do a lot of competitive analysis, and we used to buy data like crazy from DNB for any company that could sell data to us. And because I was, with IBM, we were doing the consulting piece. So we used to build very, very specialized use cases where I could point a pocket and say that this Piscataway society has 20 doctors, go sell them this drug, or go run this much of marketing budget needs to be allocated there for your market share to go up, right? So you could do wonders with data. The point, as I think KUSHAL was talking about, where do you draw the line, right? Now that's really important, right? So, sure. But yeah, I mean, so the way you need to look at data needs to change, but to leverage it, you need to have the right ecosystem. So that you can really, use that gold mine and get insights that could help your business.
Jaspreet, I just want to add few pointers. So one thing,
please.
One thing which Kapil rightly mentioned is, I think we have to store all the data. Only thing is we have to store it maybe some glacier kind of thing or some low cost storage, because today that data we may not have identified how we can use the data. But after 6 months or 1 year, we may feel, okay, hey, this is how smartly we can use it. And there can be a 10x or 100x advantage, which we may not have identified and realized now. So that is one very critical thing. I don't think in today's world, we can ignore any data. So we have to store. Only things we have to draw the line. And I'll give you one example. A few years back, when I was working for an agri company, we were having 40 satellite system. And from 40 satellite system, we reduced it to 8. And there was a challenge, like because seeds you have to grow in the field, in the farm, and their typical problem is your network. In rural area, many places you'll not find any good network connectivity is there. So the challenge is, earlier our production people and quality people, they used to visit the farmer, issue them production seed, which is male seed and a female seed. By the way, after joining that company, I got to know in seeds also there is a male seed and female seed. And then we have to track it. What is the germination percentage? How is the plant health? And whether when the flowering season comes, how it is, whether it has male characteristics more or female characteristics, or whether it is having the intended hybrid characteristics. So now they have to visit at least 3-4 times during that crop cycle time for seeds. So quality people will visit and production people will visit. Now they used to note down everything on a piece of paper, and daily they used to spend hours doing the data entry part in the ERP system. So we developed a mobile app which used to work in online and offline mode, and the person is aware, I am going in this so and so taluka, villa or village. Here network is the issue. So before entering that, he will just download some data. So it will be a delta file of say less than 1 MB. And we even designed BYOD policies and all those things also. Now, the good part is he has all the relevant data of the farmers, of the growers. Data validation can happen then and there itself. So it's more like a edge validation, edge computing, which is happening. Like what I have issued him earlier, what kind of inputs I need. I don't have to type or write farmer name or some code or other stuff. Everything is available in system. Now the line which we draw was only relevant data we used to shift or transfer to the ERP. Remaining data used to rely on that mobile application what we developed in that database itself. So we were not pushing. So if for example, if I'm generating 100 data sets, I may be pushing only 8 to 10 data sets which are relevant from ERP perspective to ERP. Remaining were available is still with me in the mobile application database. So I think those kind of working we have to come up with which we don't compromise on or we don't lose any data. And same time we leverage the, I think, integrated, you can say, the power of all the systems, all the entire ecosystem.
So that's right. Just to add to that point, KUSHAL, I think that's a very valid point. For example, today we use a lot of weather data. We use a lot of external data, and one of them is weather, which we take from weather.com, which is now an IBM company. So the kind of data points we get from that weather satellites, and they are the largest privately held satellites in the world, is owned by weather company, right? We really don't want to store that data, but what we do with that data is we timeline it, right? So if either you're running an ETL job to do that, but we would want to see and say 4 years back in the month of June, on this specific time, what was the temperature in this lat long, or what was the weather pattern in this lat long, right? Now, one can argue and say that this information could be with weather company, and you can always go and buy it from them, right? So that's the trade-off you need to figure out. But you're right that you don't need to store everything. But as you also rightly said, that you really don't know what will you use in the future. So it's a very bleak line where you need to draw, what needs to be stored versus what needs to be discarded.
Correct.
Over to you, Manish. Yeah, Farhan, please go ahead.
Yeah, Manish, please.
Yeah. So I think just to add on, in manufacturing or a personalized setup, we have a lot of data. But when it comes to healthcare industry, I think we work with a lot of innovators and a lot of persons who want to innovate in terms of AI, ML models. But when we want to have data for that, we don't get that much of source. I think Kapil would agree. He also spoke about Pfizer when he was spending a lot of money on getting the data. I think the one thing which we really lack is can we know that, okay, I went to one hospital and I went tomorrow to another hospital. Do I have my own data? We don't have that. Can we do analysis of our own disease history? We don't have that in India. Although America and other countries have moved a step forward in that. But we don't work on interoperability of data, ease of availability of data for the use of countries' help, for use of that industry going all together to the next level. I think that's what I think we should, I advocate mostly for that purpose, that we should move to the next level. Data is available. Yeah, data is there. Is it the relevant data available? Where it is used? Can we use it for the purpose of moving to the next disruption?
I think that's a very valid point, Manish. I'll just take a minute, because you talked about healthcare, and I've been in healthcare and worked with IBM Watson.
Yeah.
And at that time, during the Watson use case that we were doing was in the healthcare industry, and we were training the Watson engine to actually look at millions of CT scan reports and actually predict if a person is going to get cancer in a year or not. Right? Yeah. Imagine the amount of data that's needed to train a model like that, right? And we didn't have data because unlike even like India, even US, a lot of the data is isolated in pockets. So we had to buy data, and because it was IBM, we were able to kind of democratize a lot of things and churn things around or turn things around. But as you rightly said, all these healthcare use cases, they require huge data sets. Right, and the kind of GPU powers that you need to process and churn this data, unless you have it, you won't be able to do anything with that model.
Yeah, right. Yeah. In fact, just to add on to it, I was giving an example of oxygen concentrator. In pandemic, we have seen Just people are hoarding for oxygen concentrator and keeping it at home. They are no use to it. Now, whether I'm infected, it is used or not, we have built on top of mobile app an AI application, which if you cough, and it will tell you, what is it? Are your lungs at risk or not risk? So you test it before going for a rental. Maybe you don't need it. Somebody else can use it.
Right.
So that's the typical use cases, which I think we should be working typically on to understand what is the need and build the capacity on that.
And I
Correct.
think smartwatches
Absolutely.
playing a very critical role now in healthcare industry also.
Yeah.
But all what we'll come to you, Farhan, for closing. But whatever Kapil, Kushal, and Manish you spoke about in the last 3-4 minutes, being a security professional, almost 50% of my time, I'm very, very worried, right? If this data falls in wrong hands, I can tell you, doomsday is just around the corner. Farhan, closing comments from you, please.
Right. Just with, I think we all agreed that data is oil. The reason being, the management is now very much hungry for the data. Now, what the data will tell us what are the things that that went wrong, what are the factual reality where the assumptions is not correct, and it will correct the future perspective as well. So that's the reason the management is looking for the data, not on a day basis. They are looking for online data. Now, if you look at the liquor space, how it operates, largely it is basically managed by the state government. That means the manufacturer is selling to state government, and from state government it is going to the retailer. From retailer it is going to a customers. Now, look at the data. Means the corporate who is having a data is selling to retailers, and from retailer it's selling to customers. So it's a primary sale, secondary sale, and tertiary sales. The management would like to see, of course, primary it is on-prem, it's managed by us, we can provide the detail, but at the same time they need a data from the secondary data, and of course the tertiary also. How the things are happening at the ground, which brand is selling on a faster pace, what is the market share that we have, what is the market share of the competition is. So that's all data bring to a different strategy level, which is very important aspects is, as far as the data legacy goes, I think there are some government rules which everybody knows about it. But for a strategic purpose, most of the organization look at the 5 years or 6 years trend, how this the data is basically predicting what happened in the past for the last 5 years. But last 2 years, this trend has now, reached to a very different high and low. So the data is oil because it tells you the story. That tells you the story that you should assume something which basically predict a good future. So that's the reason most of the things and around, if you see the last in 2007 and 10, the maximum size of hard disk, and today in 2021, the maximum size of the devices that we are using, even I think 1 terabyte mobile is also available. So the needs of everybody. If you look at the today's, my son who is in 9, he's using Team, and then his online classes and all. He also need something where he can save his all work which he has done for his class. So the data is a future. So that's the reason every organization is looking for, as Kaushal has said, there is a new GDPR and all these things are coming in place. Of course, it is going to hit the enterprise architecture as well. But data is of course, is a new one. Jasprit.
Perfect. I think, thank you so very much, fellow panelists. I think I learned a lot in this panel. I have a lot of serious takeaways that I could go back and reflect on. It was a pleasure moderating such an esteemed panel. Thank you so very much. God bless and have a lovely day ahead.
Thank you, Jasprit.
Thank you, Jasprit. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.